All right, everybody, welcome to another installment of the Beer Flow Podcast. You hear all that noise? Yes, it is another field trip. Today, we are going to spend some time with Dave McLean from Magnolia. He's got two locations out here, one in the Haight, one over in the Dogpatch. We just sat down with him and had just an incredible time. We talked about beer, we talked about the industry, we talked about the Great American Beer Festival, and we also found out the deadhead is not a dirty word. So kick back, relax. We're going to have some beer. Hopefully you have some beers. Please enjoy our time with Dave McLean from Magnolia in San Francisco. I'll catch you in a few. All right, everybody, welcome to another installment of the Beer Flow Podcast. Your boy Greg, Einstein Ed in the back. And once again, we're on another great field trip. We are here in the city. We are in San Francisco, and we're here at a place that is near and dear to our heart not only because this is kind of where it all started. We started mapping out this whole podcast concept and everything at this place. We started talking about Black Brew Friday at this place. I am here sitting across from Dave McLean. He is the head brewmaster here at Magnolia in San Francisco. Dave, we're going to shake hands. Thank you very much. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, my
if
pleasure.
anything, you're a busy man, and I did want to make this personal for just a second. I wanted to show you, and this is the only reason why my computer is up. This is my screensaver that is on my computer, that has been on my computer every day for about a year.
That's awesome. That's right over there.
Yeah, it's right at that table. I am showing Dave this picture that we, myself, Einstein, and Einstein's wife took, and we just had a great time just sitting here talking about beer, talking about where this podcast could go, and in all honesty, it is so cool that it's now literally come full circle. So once again, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thanks for coming in.
No
Happy to do it.
no problem. All right, let's get into it.
Bring it on.
How was Denver? Did you go this year? I should ask. Did you
I
go?
did, yes.
You did? How was the Great American Beer Festival?
It is insane. It is. It just gets crazier every year, and it's intense. Sometimes it's a little overwhelming, but I mean, I wouldn't miss it for the world. I think I've gone to. I think my first one was about 22 years ago, and I've gone to most of them since Magnolia opened 19 years ago.
Wow.
I missed maybe one or two, but it's great. It's I can't even imagine fall without it. You know, it's part of the fall ritual for
right.
me. You know, it's like the leaves changed in some places, and in my case, I go to Denver.
Football starts, you're going to Denver.
There's a trip to Denver somewhere, and it's a lot of fun. I mean, it's so intense on the festival floor these days with the extra 90,000 square feet that they added last year, and that many more breweries. I think around 800 now.
Really?
The number of entries in the competition is around 7,000. I judge for a few years now. I took last year off, but I was back at it this year, and that's a pretty intense and amazing way to see the other side of the festival, is just what goes on behind the scenes. And
right.
I get a lot out of judging. I love sitting there at a table with a lot of peers and even a lot of people that I admire and look up to. I feel like I learned a lot. So that adds to it. It just makes for a crazier time because it's nonstop. 9 to 5 judging, and then work the festival 5:30 to 10. But it's a great trip.
Well, that's what's cool is like we've talked to a few people that have. You're probably now the person that kind of ties it all in, because I've talked to a few people that have actually gone to it, just going to it. I've talked to a couple brewers that have actually entered, and now a judge. How did that come about? How did you get into judging that?
Glutton for punishment.
Right. Well, I mean,
it's as much as I say it's a lot of work. I mean, it's something that everybody that I know that judges really enjoys it, really does it for the love of doing it. I mean, we appreciate the need for there to be a lot of judges with so many new entries and things like that. And, so it feels like we're doing our part in helping. But everybody gets a lot out of it personally. And I had known other people that had done it for years, and so I felt drawn to it.
Okay. How many judges are there?
I think there are around 200 250, 260 maybe.
Crap.
But, you get 7,000 beers. So,
Right,
and
right.
multiple rounds and flights. And, it takes a lot of bodies, a lot of humans to be able to process that amount of beer in a certain amount of time, right?
A lot of crackers and water in between.
A lot of crackers and water, yeah.
Jeez. So, were there... I understand. There's no way you're going to be able to get to every entry, silver medal effort, if you can get to most of them. But, I mean, what did you see that was kind of a recurring theme? What was kind of the... I don't want to say a trend, because trend's now a trendy word. But, I mean, was there a lot of something that beer craft lovers and consumers can look forward to as far as anything new that you kind of saw a lot of this year at the festival?
There are probably, at this point, there are multiple annual trends simultaneous to each other. I mean, there are, you kind of, wherever you sort of shine the big magnifying glass to the big spotlight, you see, there's a lot of this going on. There's also a lot of this going on. So, one of the things that seems like it's been trending a little bit in a positive direction is a lot more love for an expression of German brewing styles, and a lot more lager brewing going on. Also, a little bit more of an appreciation and demonstration of love for sessionable beers and lower alcohol beers, which to me has always been really near and dear to my heart. It's been one of the driving directional, things we do at Magnolia and have for the whole time we've been around, is to really focus a lot on balance and nuance in a small package and a lot of sessionable British influenced beers. So I like seeing that. Maybe I see that now because I'm on the lookout for it because I like it so much. But there are more people trying their hand at more sessionable beers that are, still packed with flavor, but not necessarily something that's hitting you over the head. Obviously, there's a lot more, wild ales and sour beers, a lot more, fruit flavored beers, fruit infused beers. There are a lot of trends happening at the same time.
So are the big IBU, big crazy double IPs, are those still a big, huge presence?
Absolutely. I mean, I don't think those are going anywhere.
Right.
It's not like these new directions that we're seeing more entries of. They're additive.
Okay.
They're not taking from something that was popular and shifting a focus toward something else. It's really like, IPAs don't appear to be going anywhere.
Right.
But then in addition to IPAs, there are now some of these emerging additional styles that are getting some popularity.
Awesome. Now, one thing I'm really curious about, are Pilsners making a comeback?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Was it... So now is it more people are fusing things, like just making Pilsners with this, with that, or is it just like people are, breweries starting to just like, no, let's just make a good, solid, strong Pilsner? As well, strong as in like, not so much
well
ABUs.
Made. Yeah. I think the latter is true. I think people are, a lot of people are just happy to be experimenting and trying their hand at like some of these classic styles and realizing that people are willing to drink them now.
Yeah. No,
I almost think there's a little bit of a correction. I mean, you kind of go back a couple steps and you think about like, for people, I know now craft beer has been around for 30 plus years, 40 years, and now there are multiple generations that are now in the business and in the industry and on the consumer side. But at one point, if you look at for some kind of genesis moment, where it all began and what it came out of, frankly, it was kind of a reaction to insipid, boring, yellow mass-produced
fizzy beer
lagers. Yeah. And so the fact that craft beer was sort of an antidote to or a reaction to that dominant paradigm in beer means that much of the early years and then the trends that emerged from those early years were about like showing how different beer could actually be. Like, it doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to be thin and insipid and light and yellow and fizzy. It can be, packed with flavor and assertive and intense and big and bold and all these things that the beer that we grew up drinking in the 80s or whenever people in the 70s probably didn't have those kinds of beers to choose from.
Yeah.
So it was like, let's make beer flavorful and assertive and all these interesting ingredients. And so that sort of set wheels in motion.
Right.
And an unfortunate sort of, I don't know, collateral damage or side effect from that is like, what got left in the dust is entire styles of like lagers, light lagers, pilsners, all that stuff just got left behind as like, oh, we don't want to make beer like that. We want to make these big, hoppy, full flavor beers, right?
Right.
And now at some point, like craft beer has asserted itself to the point where those, there's no harm now in actually trying to express oneself through brewing some of these, light yellow, German influence, German style beers, various light lagers and pilsners, you name it. It's almost like after a period of time, the whole thing has run its course to the point where now it's safe to make a light yellow beer again.
Yeah,
and the customer will actually differentiate between your fresh, well-made, full-flavored, nice ingredients, good light yellow beer versus sort of a mass-produced, boring light yellow beer. And so, like, there's enough distinction that the consumer now has enough, sophistication in their, where the things have come in the beer world to like, be able to differentiate and actually say, yeah, this is a really good version of that style of beer. I love this beer. I'll drink this a lot. So,
yeah, it's not going to be High Life in a can. It's going to be, oh, really? Stone made a yellow fizzy beer? Okay, something like that. I mean, I totally understand. And I know that people, craft breweries, they've been, kind of dipping the toes in that for years, and now it's really starting to come to the forefront as far as the consumer market. So I personally think that's great.
It's great because there was, in hindsight, no real reason to throw the baby out with the bathwater. It's like you don't have to. We didn't have to like all run the other direction from like a delicious pilsner. Like that would have been a fine style to have been making this entire time.
Yeah.
It's just that we had to kind of come full circle and get away from those beers before we could come back and view those beers in a new light.
Right. I mean, let's be honest. Like a pilsner style, that's been around a lot longer than your chili infused double IPA. So
absolutely,
you have to, you have to tip your hat and say, okay, that's the grandfather. Let's show some respect and.
Sure.
But as long as they're being respectful, I think, to the sophistication and I guess the palate's changing of your average beer drinker these days.
Well, the palate and also the sort of psychology of beer drinking, probably.
Right.
There's a lot of, we've kind of in some ways as a community of brewers created a little bit of a monster in this idea of like, well, what crazy new thing can you do next? We've sort of created this like almost addiction to what's new and different,
right?
And like, oh, can you put another crazy ingredient in here? Can you make it taste like this? Can you make it taste like that? Can you make this beer remind me of this other food that I like to eat?
Right.
And that's I guess it remains to be seen, like how much of that is a moment in time and how much of that is like a enduring trend. I mean, I kind of hoping for the, moment in time for the former there because I kind of that's fun and it's fun to, explore and be creative and try stuff out, but like a lot of beers like that, including sometimes when I've come up with my own beers that are somewhat experimental like that, they're fascinating and they're interesting and maybe you did pretty cool things to get all these flavors to come together a certain way and at the end of the day though, maybe it's not a beer I want to drink a second pint of or even finish the first glass of,
Right.
And so to me it's still there's a beer as beer. What do you want from your beer?
Right.
What do you expect beer to be like in your in an everyday setting? Not your special occasion, sitting around with a bunch of other knowledgeable and like obsessed beer people and like all sort of exploring something unusual. That's fun, but like sometimes just want to drink a beer. I want to find the right beer that works for me at that moment in time, that is tasting exactly how I want beer to taste at that moment. And then I want to get down to whatever it is I'm doing, which might be hanging out with friends and talking or whatever.
Right.
And I want to just maybe be able to stop thinking about the next beer and the next beer after that and just say, I'll have another one of those. I'll have another one of those. Like this beer is hitting all the right buttons for me right now. And it's well made, it's fresh, it's delicious, there are no flaws, it tastes a certain way.
Right.
Sure, you give me another one. And then after that, I'll take another one of those too. I don't want to necessarily stop the flow of whatever else is going on in my life, some great conversation or a date or whatever, and like stop and like really analyze the next 3 beers and talk about them like ad nauseum.
No, I totally feel that. I mean, I know I call them my chucklehead in the neighborhood, and they're all macro guys. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna stop trying to impress you. Let me just find something that I know that I like, and you guys will enjoy watching the game with. And so I totally understand. I feel the same way. You just gotta just bring something good. Stop trying. I mean, not saying stop trying to impress, but I mean, there's no need to constantly try to impress. At least, I mean, as a drinker.
Right. And I guess we might have diverged a little bit from the original conversation point there, but I think the point was that there are some changes afoot, where some people are starting to come back around and remember like what beer drinking can be, or what you sort of expect of beer drinking.
No,
and it doesn't always have to be hyper analytical,
right,
and extremely focused on the moment of taking that sip and thinking about it and talking about it and analyzing and understanding it. I mean, it can, as long as it's a well-made, fresh, delicious beer, like it can just be beer, and something that you might want to, So, I see that happening more lately, and I see that maybe that's part of why you see pilsners and lagers and some really balanced, nice, lighter beers kind of having a new moment now, because people are kind of coming back to that and be like, oh yeah, this is great. Like, it's delicious. It's delicious. Yeah. What else does it need to be? Like, it doesn't have to do anything else but be delicious.
I totally agree. Now, you also went to the beer summit in Sacramento, the California Craft Beer Summit. How was that?
That was great. That was like a mini craft brewers conference, in our industry, which is, the Brewers Association also puts on an annual trade show that moves around the country, called the Craft Brewers Conference, and that's more the industry-facing event, whereas the GABF is their same organization. BA puts on. The GABF is more the public-facing event, beer festival. Craft Brewers Conference is, and the CBA Summit are more, events where it's, a little more of a, more connection with our peers, our fellow brewers, and the suppliers who sell us our hops and our malt, the equipment makers who make the equipment that we brew on. Kind of everybody coming together, but in a more California-specific way as opposed to the national conference. And so it was really nice. It was nice to show up in Sacramento and be among a subset, a more localized group of our industry colleagues, and connect and network and figure out who you're going to get this from and that from and that kind of thing. Yeah.
No, well, the only reason why I brought it up because Einstein and we were actually going to go, and the only reason why we didn't was because something came up for the podcast at the last second. Like, I'm not going to go to the summit because we have this. Okay, well, we'll take that because we don't know if that opportunity is ever going to come again. So, I mean, I guess what I wanted to ask was, for somebody who wasn't going to be able to go to Denver, would that be a pretty good second runner-up as far as beer festivals go?
Well, right. So there are two parts of the summit. There's the summit that is the sort of trade show part,
right?
And then there's the festival that happens on the Capitol Mall,
right?
And that is one of the. I mean, it's not nearly the same size as the GABF, but that's one of the larger beer festivals that we attend now. In terms of number of breweries, well over 100, 120, 130, something like that.
Yeah,
maybe
they
more.
were at first saying there was going to be about 200. Then when it came a little closer to the event, it's like, there's 100, 150, 120. Like, either way, that's a good
large
chunk.
Number of breweries, and it's pretty cool to have them all in one long row on the Capitol Mall and in front of the State House, and it's cool because it's very California's a big state, but it's just California breweries, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
There's the GABF, you almost have to spend a little time in advance mapping out a strategy of how you're going to go to these breweries, because with 800 breweries on the floor, there's no way, even if you go to all 4 sessions, there's no way you're going to get to all of them. Jeez. Nor should you. So you got to figure out, am I going to go visit these breweries in faraway places that I can't otherwise get to, or I'm going to focus on a particular style or styles and say I'm going to try all the IPAs, or I'm going to try all the sour beer. I mean, you got to somehow narrow the field down to figure out even what you're going to go to. So, conversely, the festival at the summit was is a lot more manageable. It's like these are all California breweries. There's, I can actually hit quite a few of them.
Right.
I mean, I never really left our booth, working, but I would imagine a festival attendee could probably hit most of the breweries and like.
Definitely with a goal in mind and somewhat of a strategy. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe you're based and live in NorCal and you're going to check out the SoCal breweries or something like that or whatever. But like, it's, in a sense, it's a little bit like a mini GABF that way, and that it's big enough to have a lot of different ways you could approach it and figure out what you want to check out, but yet it's still small enough that you don't feel it. It's not overwhelming.
Got it. Okay, cool. So for our listeners, they obviously hear the background ambient. I don't want to say noise, sound. So we're in the location in the Dogpatch area. This is the second location. The first was in the Haight. And this has been here for approximately how long? 10 years?
No, this has been here about 2.5 years.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's 2.5 years. How's it been with the barbecue? How has just that come along? I mean, I have so many food and like beer pairing questions that it just seemed natural. I'd assume it just was natural to have barbecue here.
Yeah. So, I mean, to answer that, I have to back up a little bit to go to the pub, the original Haight-Ashbury Brew Pub that I opened in 1997. And that was, the initial vision for that was to be consistent across the board and kind of immersive and all-encompassing with the experience that we offered people. So it was not just about, I was a brewer approaching this from a brewery perspective and building a small brewery in the basement of this restaurant, and sure, that was the driver, but the direction I chose for that was still one where it was like, I don't want you to come in and have this great beer experience and maybe have a less than great food experience, or maybe have a less than great service experience, or maybe be in a space that was kind of boring or not as exciting as another space where maybe the beer isn't as good, but it might be a more cool place for you and your friends to hang out. So, it was really this idea, a very simple idea of just trying to bring it all together into one package and make it this kind of immersive experience. And to really focus on the food as much as the beer over there. It was like, how can you talk about the ingredients you use in the beer and how you source your beer ingredients, and the love and the care and attention that goes into your brewing process and all that stuff, and then turn around and sign an invoice for a bunch of frozen prepackaged food that gets dropped into a fryer, and so I was trying to make Magnolia an antidote to a lot of that, and a place where it's like, we're gonna say these things about the beer because we mean them, and we're gonna also say those same things about the food because we mean them, because they're basic philosophical approaches to how someone would want to source things to make the things somebody's going to eat and drink. I want it to be consistent across the board. So that was the Magnolia ethos, and still is. And then given the opportunity to do another place, because we were going to build another brewery, because we ran out of capacity at that brewery and we needed a bigger brewery. The first decision was, I want to not just have it be a production brewery, but I really love the whole, create this kind of universal immersive experience with food and drink. So of course I want to do it again and make the new place also have a restaurant bar component and create another type of experience for people. And then the question was, do you just do a cookie cutter and duplicate the same thing? And for me, the answer was no. It was like, the Magnolia Pub menu, the sort of gastro pub approach, and everything that we do there, like, I love it. I love it as much today as I did 19 years ago. But I didn't want to do it again. I wanted to make that still be special to that place. And so then the question was what to do over here that would be similar but different, that would be in the same, cut from the same cloth and philosophically aligned, vision-wise aligned. And so, I love barbecue. I think, we learned a lot over in the Haight about kind of whole animal butchery and careful sourcing of non-factory farmed meat, animals that are raised with, care and respect. And the importance of using, A, the importance of the diet that they're fed, B, the importance of using all of an animal and not wasting any of it. We learned a lot of that over there, and it all sort of steered me toward, a barbecue concept here because it was a way to kind of double down on a lot of those beliefs and statements about, and over here we're actually feeding the spent grain from the brewery to the pigs, that we get the pigs in whole from the farmer, and they're heritage breed pigs that are raised from a guy that we know in Marin that comes and picks up the spent grain, and then we get those pigs, we butcher them in-house and use all of the parts in our barbecue. And so it was like a very convenient and exciting way to kind of take a lot of the sort of food values that were learned over in the Haight Street Brewery and kind of, like I said, double down on some of them and expand upon some of them, and like kind of come up with a concept that A, works really well with beer because that's super important as a brewery restaurant, and then B, kind of vision-wise was like helped us continue to tell the story or maybe even add chapters to the story and teach people a little bit about like paying attention to where their food comes from. And
they can't see, but I really have an ear-to-ear grin because this is all, to me, it's beautiful. It's, to me, it's the full circle. Literally, you've just explained the full circle of beer, food, back to beer, and back to the food. It's beautiful. Oh my God! All right, I had to take a breath after that. Okay, so now I have physically turned the page, done a little research, did a little snooping on the interwebs, and the Outside Lands Festival. Did I read that correctly? That you were the head of the entire outside beer tent?
Yeah, you probably read that correctly.
Oh, please. Okay, because like I said, in doing the research, I kind of looked and I said, no way. And then I said, okay, well, let's look at, you can go online, you can see the artists that performed at the prior shows, but then you can look at the beer list. And I lost my gourd. I was like, holy crap, there's so much good beer here. I was like, okay. Luckily, my wife and our anniversary is a few weeks before that, so we're changing our anniversary plans this year to go to Outside Lands so I can spend at least a day in the beer tent. Nice. So how did that all come about? And with all these great brewers, was it an easy sell for them to come on board?
It's a little unique of a situation and complicated in the intention is to bring in as many local breweries as possible and as many small breweries as possible to really showcase. I mean, there's another case we're backing up for a second.
Please back up. I'm all good with
it. The backstory is that Outside Lands is somewhat unique among music festivals in that it has developed almost from day one, or actually from day one, not almost, a very strong sense of place and identity, the identity that is about like where is the festival held. The festival is held in Golden Gate Park in San Francisco, and the festival organizers have taken great pains and gone to great lengths to make it so that it feels very unique and very San Francisco, that it's not just a bunch of stages and bands that could be playing in any city anywhere in the country, and like they do this through like the art and the design of the festival grounds, and they do it through particularly through the food and beverage offerings. They bring in all the food vendors are local restaurants that are setting up shop for the day or for the 3 days at the festival grounds, doing some small pared down version, like a greatest hits version of like a couple of dishes that they're most popular at their restaurants, and then they do those at the festival. So there's sort of this sense when you walk into Outside Lands, and there always has been for the whole time that it's been around 8-9 years, that I'm in Golden Gate Park, I'm in San Francisco, I'm seeing these great bands in this very unique San Francisco setting, and in the first few years, there was Winelands and there was some other great, a lot of great food and beverage offerings, but there wasn't really a craft beer element, and it was kind of, maybe one of the last pieces of the puzzle for them to fit into place. And so then, when I was asked if I wanted to do that, it was like an easy thing to say yes to because it's a real labor of love. I mean, it's just an opportunity I saw it as an opportunity to take a lot of the foundation of what they've set up as a sort of format and philosophy for that festival and just extend it to beer and like really make it also about the local producers, and the local places. And so so that part was easy. The idea that it's going to be a festival, a beer area, the beer tent, beer lands,
right,
at a music festival that's going to mirror a lot of how they chose and curate the food vendors and a lot of the other vendors that are there, and so that part's easy. But it's also a very big festival. 60,000 people a day, I think. 65,000 people a day. I'm not sure of the exact number, but the beer needs are pretty large. So like you have sort of a little bit of a puzzle to solve, which is large amounts of beer needed, but the effort to source from small breweries.
Right.
So not every brewery can meet the needs. Not every brewery can supply like 15 kegs of something.
Right.
Because that might be, for some breweries, that could be like 2 batches of that beer.
Right.
Or a batch of that beer at least. So it just turns into a little bit of a puzzle to solve of, how can I keep the beer list hyper local? How can I make it as San Francisco centric as possible, and then from there maybe as Bay Area centric, filling in holes as possible, and then maybe some NorCal, breweries that aren't quite as close but are still very much part of the NorCal beer community. How do you give a festival like that a sense of? How do you give the beer list of a festival like that a sense of place that kind of fits the rest of the programming there? And it involves a lot of like, can you guys do this? Well, what about this beer? Just a lot of conversations and a lot of planning, and it starts in like March.
Were you hearing from like a lot of just San Francisco natives, people who were attending? I guess maybe when it first started, were you hearing like, hey, more craft beer, or was it just something like, no, I'm just gonna bring this and I don't even care? As far as craft brew versus big macros coming in.
I can only speak to the time that I've been involved in it, which is 4 years now, 5 years, I guess. Prior to that, getting to know the team behind the festival, they are super ambitious and try so hard to pull off a really amazing event across the board. Like every aspect of it is really designed to, really deliver a way above average festival experience for the guest. And so, I can't speak to maybe, why beer wasn't part of the initial,
maybe just because,
but there's only so much bandwidth that like one group of people can devote to something. It's like if you're, building out this amazing space with all of the decor and design items, and like kind of working on that, and you're also bringing in all the great food and wine lands they started with, which was great. The wine section. There's just only so much a group of people can do, and for whatever reason, beer wasn't necessarily part of that in the very beginning. But I at the point where I came into the picture, from that point forward, it was like my intention was like let's make it about the local beer community. It's I don't know exactly what people are going to want to drink, but I think that we can turn them on to great local beer and show them that they can come hang out at a giant, large format festival and still have a bunch of great locally brewed beer options.
Right.
So, that was the intention from the beginning of my relationship with it.
Well, on behalf of somebody who hasn't gone, but now is going to go, just based on, yes, the set list, or, the artist list is incredible. Yeah, now that is definitely just kind of kicked me in the butt to say, I'm definitely going just to check this out. So thank you. I thank you on behalf of everyone who does it. Thank you. Thank you so much. Now, we're going to start to wrap it up. I don't know if you are aware, but we are a craft beer and hip-hop podcast. The scene that you've been, you've done all these, and let's just face it. Being at the festival, was there any hip-hop group that you looked forward to seeing, or that maybe kind of took you by surprise, said, oh, I didn't expect that, and liked it?
Well, when it comes to the Outside Lands Fest, I end up getting fairly planted at the Beer Lands tent.
Okay.
So I feel like I saw a lot more music at Outside Lands prior to working there.
Oh, okay.
Ironically.
Okay.
And I feel like now I'm there all day, every day for 3 days, but I see less music than I probably used to. Just because,
It's just how it works out.
That's how it works out.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of working, I guess.
Right. Yeah, I understand.
And then, to be totally honest, you're talking to a stuck in the mud, dyed in the wool deadhead.
I was just gonna say, is deadhead a bad word?
Deadhead's not a bad word.
Okay, no,
not in the circles I travel in. But yeah, I do like to think that I'm pretty open-minded about music.
Okay.
I think the Dead taught me that. I mean, like they were truly a fusion of a variety of American musical inspirations, from jazz to bluegrass and old time to just pure rock and roll to some classical stuff and modern classical, kind of avant-garde classical. I mean, one of their strengths was like the many different kinds of American music that the different members kind of brought, and then the way that they were able to sort of, fuse those together in a way that didn't sound fusion-y, but just sounded like, you could just tell, like, this is a little bit inspired from this, or maybe this is inspired from this and this,
Right.
Not a lot of overlap, though. That being said, with all those various American influences, I mean, they're also, a product of the 60s. The influences that influenced them were the early part of the 20th century up to the 50s and 60s. So, and I tend to have adopted that sort of openness of like, wow, if I check this out, it's going to open a door to this thing, and I'm just going to go down a rabbit hole, and I'm going to find this cool thing, and then this cool thing. It hasn't brought me to a whole lot of hip hop, but I appreciate
fair enough.
I just whether it's music, whether any kind of genre of music is music that I've particularly like explored and fallen in love with or not, I just kind of comfort myself in knowing that it's all out there, and that I'll probably get to it at some point, because
it's a long life. I don't care what people say. It's a long life,
and there's a lot out there to digest, and so I'm not the one to ask.
No, that's fine.
But
I had to ask. You were there in some capacity. I had to ask. I would have failed my audience if I didn't ask.
Yeah, well,
I appreciate
worlds
the honest
could
answer.
collide in some way, and I could find myself. Yeah, who knows?
I'll make you a mixtape.
There you go. I'll take it.
All right. Last question, I promise. Outside of any of the beer that you make, give me 3 beers on your 3-beer flight list right now.
3, huh?
Or 2. We'll go as many as you like or as little as you like.
Okay, so I'll start with 1.
Let's hear it.
And over the years, I mean, I've been doing this for 19, 20 years, and over the years, some version of that question gets asked of a lot of brewers.
I'd assume, and I'm sorry.
No, it's fascinating that it is such a common question, because there's something there it says something. I don't know exactly what it says, but it's like people want to know, like, well, what do the chefs like to eat, or what do the brewers like to drink, or whatever, and sometimes it's framed as like, what's your desert island beer? What would you, if you could only have one beer, what would it be?
Right. No, I hear you.
I like my beers, and I'm proud of the beers that we make at Magnolia, but for as long as I've been doing this, and for as long as I've been asked questions like that, I have always consistently never failed to say that Sierra Nevada Pale Ale is that one desert island beer.
I absolutely bow down. Absolutely bow down. Like I said earlier in our conversation off the air, I watched TV before when I was in the clothing and retail industry. Oh, what are they wearing? But then when I went into the beverage industry and I started doing beers and alcohol, I looked and saw an episode of Friends, and it's a green bottle of Sierra Nevada. So to this day, yes, I mentioned my Chucklehead neighbors, and they're all macros, but then they will subtext me and say, but we have Sierras. Okay, we're good. Right. And you have to. It's almost like you have to.
But it is a perfect beer.
Absolutely.
Right? It has a historical and cultural significance that adds to my feelings about it, my perception of it, right? Because it's the the beer that kind of begat the entire pale ale movement and helped kickstart and create the whole craft beer movement.
Right.
But even if you strip away any kind of historical, cultural importance and just look at it purely as a beer and the flavors and aromas of the beer and the quality control and the stability and freshness and the fact that it is. I know a lot of brewers that say the same thing. It's not like I'm being unique in this. It's just
no.
But for a lot of us, we hold that up as a standard, as the standard.
Absolutely.
And it's like this is what it means to, start out on a independent sort of approach and say we're going to make beer that's different from all the other beer around at this point, and then to grow the company and grow the brand and grow the volume of production and not only keep it consistently as good as it was in the beginning when it was small, but actually in a lot of ways make it better. I mean, like the amount of resources plowed back into that process, into the R&D and into the quality control and into pioneering new ways to do something better. I mean, it really bothers me. I have a pet peeve when
let's hear it.
When a person who is not as maybe intimately familiar with all of that kind of sometimes will throw some of the legacy brands under the bus, like a Sierra or something. Say, oh well, I want something new and different and cutting edge. It's like, no, you want a good beer. You just want a beer that's well made, that's delicious, that is that is the quality control in that beer. If you are asked to part with money for a product, you want to know that the product, that there was some integrity on the side of making that product that's going to give you a good chance of getting that product in its best possible state. And that's what Sierra represents that. So I've never changed in the whole time I've been doing this. That's my go-to beer. In fact, I was at a random corner liquor store last night on the way to a friend's house for a Halloween party, and I grabbed a 6-pack of Sierra Pale.
Why not? I mean, to me, I get it. It's borderline perfect.
Yeah.
So, Dave, thank you so much for your time.
Sure.
This is true. I was so looking forward to this. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And we are going to partake in your beers right now. We're going to be here for a while.
Nice.
Thank you so much. We're going to probably grab some grub.
Awesome. My pleasure. Thanks for coming in.
No problem. Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
All right, guys. 15 for 12 coming right up. We'll catch you in a minute. Okay, everybody. 15 for 12. And Dave is he's still with us. And he's done us the honor of giving us our tasters. And the reason why we call it 15 for 12 is because we kind of average about 15 minutes for a 12-ounce bottle for you to sit there and enjoy and kind of get a description of. These are obviously not 12 ounces of beer. At least there's some ounces of beer. But he gave us our testers for our 15 for 12. I don't know what's in front of me. I know which one of them is. But Dave has given us the honor of actually pouring and choosing our beers for this week's Beer Flow segment of 15 for 12. So, Dave, take over. I am grabbing this lighter in color, straw-like yellow beer. What do we have here?
Right. So you are starting with the California Kolsch.
Okay.
And that is one of our flagship beers. It's a German golden ale. Kolsch, as you may or may not know, you typically come from, or have always come from, the city of Cologne in Germany.
Right.
And we make a Kolsch style ale that is pretty much a traditional expression of a true Kolsch. Uses the Kolsch yeast, German malt, German hops.
Very, very smooth, very light. Prost.
4.7% ABV. Super crisp, refreshing.
Absolutely,
the
really,
Kolsch yeast
really good.
is an interesting yeast because it's a hybrid yeast. It's an ale, but ferments at slightly cooler temperatures than most ales. So it sort of exhibits a little bit of the properties of an ale and a lager. It's got a little bit of the complexity that you would get from an ale, but but those complex components are a little bit clipped, and the beer remains a little more crisp because it's this cool fermentation kind of clips those stronger fruity notes and makes it it gives it a little bit of a flavor hook from the fermentation, but without overpowering the malt and hops.
Right, because honestly, that's kind of the first thing I taste is like the fermentation, almost like I don't want to say creaminess, but it's got a very, very drinkable smoothness to it. That
It's kind of a go-to beer around here
Right.
for us. You know, a lot of the brewers drink it. We really love it for what it.
It's great.
It's just. To me, it goes back to what we were talking about in the interview, which is that this is just this is a beer that is, designed to really just drink and enjoy, and it needs to be fresh, and it needs to be. It really doesn't have anything to hide behind. It's a very delicate beer, so you really you got to be on your game and brew it right. But it really just is a balanced, refreshing, just good drinking beer.
No, that's great. All right, on to the next one. This one, I can't tell you what it is, but it's got a nice golden color. Dave, what do we got here?
So that is Bluebell Bitter, which is our ESB, extra special bitter, very traditional English style. And that was batch number 1 in 1997, the first beer I brewed when I opened Magnolia. It is a showcase for floor malted heirloom barley called Maris Otter, which is an English variety of barley. It's fermented with an English ale yeast strain that is kind of our house yeast strain that shows up in most of our beers except the Coles. And it's got it's 100% UK grown Goldings hops. And so it's really very English. English malt, English hops, English yeast.
This is beautiful. My one and only foray into home brewing, I made an ESB, and it was definitely a bigger piece of meat than I can chew. But God, this okay, we're coming back for seconds on this one. Okay, this one I'm gonna guess is the Cole Porter.
That's right.
All right, definitely black in color, nice little crema on top. Dave, take it from here. What do we got?
So Cole Porter is somewhat of a robust porter. If the porter category kind of goes into, you got brown porter, which is more of an English porter, and robust porter, which has a little more assertive dark malt character to it. So it's a beer that arguably could cross a line into stout territory a little bit. It's pretty low ABV. It's another under 5% beer. Everything you've tried so far is under 5.
Right.
It's got a little touch of roast barley in it, which arguably might make it not a porter.
No, I could definitely taste that roastiness. It's almost, it may be unfair because there's smoked meat in here, but I mean, that roastiness kind of reminds me of like smoked meat, smoked bacon, but this is really great.
Thanks. It's the hop profile is driven mostly by UK grown Goldings for that kind of earthiness with a little bit of spiciness, but it has a touch of Cascade in the finish at the end of the boil.
Got it.
So
okay, got it.
It kind of brightens it up a little bit.
Yeah, no, it absolutely. That's so much better at this than I am. Okay, so it looks like we've got 2 special ones here. What do we have in this tulip bowl here?
That one is called Rosebud, and it is a once-a-year beer that we do every fall. That is really, talk about hybrids. It is an English malt bill, a Belgian fermentation, and it has grapes in it as well as some spices in it. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So it's fermented with in a 7-barrel batch. It's also, in addition to the malt bill, it's got the juice of 100 pounds of Syrah grapes.
Wow.
We put those in on we put the juice in on day 2 of fermentation. So it's already started its fermentation of the malt sugars, and then we kind of add to that the grape juice.
Okay, so I do have a little bit of background as far as wine goes. So yeah, Syrah, it's going to be like it's a grape. It's a wine varietal that a little peppery when you drink that wine, but the pepper is not here. But that nice, really big, great taste is there without being like fruity Capri Sun sweet. And
yeah, it's a fun beer.
Nice spices though.
It was
almost like mulling spices.
Yeah, so there's a touch of lavender in there. There is some pepper in there.
Okay.
And that's pretty much it.
This one is beautiful.
Oh, and roses. I mean,
that was that was the first thing I smelled. It was very floral.
I almost left that out of the description, but I mean that's where the name comes from.
Right. Well, I love Citizen Kane, so that was the first thing I thought of. But.
Right. So Rosebud, sled of Citizen Kane.
Absolutely.
Also one of Jerry Garcia's guitars called Rosebud.
Okay, see, there is where my, lack of knowledge as far as the Dead goes. Like I said, I'm sorry, I focus on the hip hop, but I listen to everything. I don't know a lot of.
We can exchange. No, you can teach me about hip hop, and I'll teach you about the Dead.
Done. Absolutely done. All right, so last beer for this week's Beer Flow segment of 15 for 12.
So you are here on November 1st, which is the kickoff of the Brew SFO project, which is a annual event that we do with the 21st Amendment Brewery.
Right.
And it's basically Belgian Beer Month for us. And so both breweries make a total of 6 Belgian-inspired beers over the course of November. And we have a punch card, where you try them all, and you get a glass at the end if you had all 12. So you got to go to both breweries, either Magnolia Pub in the Haight or Smokestack here in Dogpatch, and 21st Amendment's original brew pub in the city, or their San Leandro tasting room. So between the 4 locations, you can try all these beers and get your punch card punched and work your way through. It's basically the concept is, BRU is the Brussels Airport Code, SFO is the San Francisco Airport Code. The idea is that we're taking you on a trip to Belgium without leaving the Bay Area.
Wow.
And, so today is November 1st, so this is the kickoff of the Brew SFO project for 2016. And this is one of the first 3 beers that are released today at Magnolia, and then there are 3 beers released at 21st Amendment today as well. And then each consecutive Monday, starting next week, we release 1 more beer until we've released our 6 and their 6, and all 12 are out by the end of the month. So This is one of 3 beers that went on tap today. This is a Belgian IPA. It's called Sunburst.
Okay, Is it fair to say fairly citric on the nose at first?
Oh yeah, yeah. It's one of those things that
so good.
You take 2 flavors that are pretty unique on their own, like that really kind of stone fruit, fruity, spicy Belgian fermentation flavor from a lot of Abbey beers.
Right.
And then you take a really powerful hop character. And
right.
And you try to see what happens when you combine them. And it can either go right or it can go wrong. Hopefully it goes right in this case.
The one thing I do love is like a lot of people, I have a handful of friends. Shout out Ryan Stanley. He hates Belgian beers only because of the banana. So I was like, okay, I get that. But this is kind of that middle finger to that viewpoint. You're not going to get big banana. The first thing I get is big time citrus, but this is really, really good.
Yeah, the particular Abbey yeast strain that we use is somewhat maybe known or identified as maybe producing some fruity flavors that definitely aren't tropical, aren't banana. They're more like stone fruit. You get apricot, peach, kind of nectarine kind of things going on. And those particular fermentation flavors seem to play nicely with the hops that we put in here. So you get that sort of citrus / stone fruit.
Right.
Not so much tropical.
Perfect. You guys are missing out. I am not even lying. You need to get down here to Magnolia, any one of the 2 locations, here in the Dogpatch or in the Haight. Get down, and we'll send you the link as far as the Magnolia 21st Amendment, the locations you can get to get this glass. Because, for one, the glass is dope. You guys got to check it out. But,
thanks.
No, just great glass. That's it. Everyone has survived. Everyone has absolutely survived. Dave, I can't thank you enough. This has
absolutely
truly
my pleasure.
been an honor. Yeah. Truly. Thank you so much. I'm definitely going to see you at Outside Lands.
Right on.
I'm not lying. I'm going to go to your tent. I'm going to find you.
I'll be there.
All right, folks. We'll catch you guys in the flip. We'll get you in just a minute. Thanks. We got too much beer to drink here. We'll be back. All right, everybody. We hope you enjoyed it. We had a great time here at Magnolia. Did you guys really think I was going to leave you hanging? I know I make this built up to let you down. No, I'm not going to let you down. We are going to build it up. So I'm going to give you this week's Jam of the Week, and this makes perfect sense. When I went and did the research for Dave and Magnolia, started talking about Outside Lands and the music festival, I was thinking of Jam of the Week, and I thought of a time that Real Deal and I went to a Lollapalooza, and I thought of the time that I had read about this band. I was like, no, dude, they're a hip-hop band. We got to go check them out. And I just made a point to go to the side stage and check out this band. This was before they considered and called themselves legendary. It's deserved. They deserve that title now. It's before the talk show. I remember taking Real Deal to see the Roots on a side stage at Lollapalooza. He was hooked. The next day, he went and bought the CD. Because, kids, you couldn't download that shit back then. You had to buy the CD. Real Deal bought the CD. So, this week's Beer Flow Jam of the Week. Post-Woo. Barely, but Post-Woo. From the album, Do You Want More? The band, the group, The Roots. Before they were called the legendary Roots Crew, they were The Roots. The song, Proceed. Please enjoy. Just like we enjoyed our time here at Magnolia. And for those of you that don't know, our motto here at the Beer Flow, just like barbecue, slow and low, that's the tempo. That's how you get it done. All right, everybody. From myself, Einstein, Real Deal in the back. It's your boy Greg. Peace.
And I shall proceed and continue to rock the mic. Proceed on down, baby. Continue to rock the mic. Proceed and continue to rock the mic. Proceed.